Welcome to the Connectable podcast.
The Connectable podcast starts in 3, 2, 1.
All right, here we go. Deb is not here tonight, which is probably best for a lot of different reasons, which we'll get into in just a moment. But today's guest, my brother, friend of the show, I think episode number 6, maybe early on. You've been on multiple times being a co-host, like tonight. Jordan Takimoto, what's up, sir?
What's up? I just want to point out we're recording on January 11th, and Deb has already failed you. I listened to your last podcast, and like nowhere in the episode was her New Year's resolution. Like, hey, I'm going to show up to more podcasts. It was like that didn't cross her mind, and again, we're not even 2 weeks into this year, and she's just already flaking. So,
well, you know why that is, right? Because she got a big head from our fantasy football league. So let me explain to everybody what went down this past weekend. If you're not a football fan, then you're not going to care about anything I'm about to say, and you can probably tune out for the next 5 minutes. If you are a football fan, then you will understand, especially a fantasy football fan, you will understand the nonsense that occurred this past weekend, really the whole football season. So back when the NFL season started, we have a family fantasy football league that we do. Basically, our entire family and one of our youngest brother's good friends, his best friend, who's basically family, are all a part of this league. And every year there's a scramble to find a 10th person. Like it's been tough for us to have a 10th person that continues to be in the league. So one year, a couple of years ago, Deb was a part of the league. Basically, when her and I first started podcasting, she got some help from a friend. She still ended up, I think, in last place. Wasn't a great season for Deb, but that's what you expect because she doesn't really pay attention. She's not a football fan. She's a PE teacher, but she doesn't really like watch sports like that. And she's like, "Hey, this is just so you know, I'm not going to really be super into it." We're like, "That's fine. At this point, we just need a 10th person." The season goes on. This year, same thing happened at the beginning of the season. We needed a 10th person. So I said, "Hey, Deb, would you be willing?" She's like, "Yeah, again, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't watch. So if you're cool with that, fine." And she's like, "I might get help again." I said, "Okay, yeah, no problem." Because we just needed a body, right? We just needed someone to sign in and register a team. That being said, as the season went on, we started realizing that Deb was beating a lot of people. We'll get into some of the people who saved her team. Again, if you're into football, you'll know why her team did so well. But, we saw her team do pretty well. And then it got to a point where like, hey, don't worry. At some point, she's going to leave people in with buys. She's going to leave people that are injured. This is going to all even out at some point. Well, guess what? It never did. And it came down to the championship. And it was her, Ginger Spice, against Jordan Takimoto. And Jordan, what happened?
well, I lost by 3 points.
Lost by 3 points to someone that did not pay attention at all. Now, to make it worse, that Sunday night when the regular season ended, Deb had to stop by our house to drop something off. So she was talking with myself and my wife, and we were talking about some different things. And then as she was getting ready to leave, I said, "Oh, by the way, I know you don't know this, but you won the fantasy football league. You just won today." She's like, "What?" She was so excited. She's like, "I had no idea." I said, No, I know that. My entire family knows that. We all know that you had no idea, that you haven't been paying attention at all this season. And we know that you should not have won. But you know what? It's a cruel world, and you still won this league. And that being said, you're basically dead to my entire family. So I hope you're okay with that. Because you remember back in the day when we first met Deb, she would make that joke about how she was like, "Hey, we're like the Takimotos are my adopted family." Guess what, Deb? We're sending you back. We're turning in the adoption papers. We're redacting everything. We're sending you back to the adoption agency. I'm sorry, but
we're pressing charges. You did something stupid, and we're pressing charges, and we're suing you for all that you're worth.
I know. So yeah, it was. She was very excited, but also, and what made it worse? I don't know if I told you this. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I need to remember my login so I can go check this out right now." Doesn't even know the login for her fantasy football league.
That tracks. That completely tracks. But it's so disappointing. Like I've been in a funk ever since. With the connectable guest of the year, lost second round, and then like back to back lost fantasy football. Like people don't realize like that's all I have in life are these silly competitions that mean literally nothing, and I lost both of them. So it's just like, what's the purpose of living? That's how my year started, is just losing to Deb.
Yeah.
It's not a good feeling.
No, I mean you can say that you lost to the eventual champs, both in the connectable bracket and fantasy football, but you know what? We all know it doesn't make it any better, right?
No, and I just at this on this platform as the league commissioner, I just want to say her membership is up for review. And by up for review, I mean she's not coming back.
It's gone
because I'm petty.
Now, that being said, you and I have talked off air. If it's like an hour before the draft and we still need a 10th person, Deb, don't take any of this to heart. We may still need you again.
Yeah, we're gonna send out the ginger spice signal, and we're gonna send it out there, because again, there's nothing worse than you and I not coming up with a 10th person 2 hours before the draft.
Well, like people we've talked to before, it's like, they're already in a ton of leagues, or they just don't want to do it, or, it just all comes back to good old Debbie Mack. I'm gonna start calling her that, Debbie Mack. Nicole, I know you're listening. Tell me what you think about Debbie Mack. And if you think you can help me make that stick, that would be fantastic, because I don't think she's going to enjoy that nickname, but I think it's pretty good. What do you think, Jordan?
That might be the name of the fantasy football league next year.
I hope it is. Debbie Mack's Fantasy Football League.
Yep.
All right. So anyways, that was our little rant about fantasy football. That was a tough one. In all honesty, I've never seen a run like that before, because I think anybody who's played fantasy football, typically there's always someone who either from jump doesn't pay attention, or it's one of those people that their team does so poorly the first 3 weeks, they're like, this is stupid, and they just don't pay attention anymore. And usually when that happens, like I said, they leave people in that are injured. They leave people in that have buys. At one of those weeks, Deb had a week where 3 people were on a buy. Pretty sure she won, but she won because of Jonathan Taylor. She won because of Joe Mixon. She won because of Dak Prescott. She had Deebo Samuel on her bench all year. Deebo Samuel. I don't know if we have any Niners fans or any fantasy football fans. That should be a crime in and of itself. But she did. He just sat there the whole time. I forgot who it was. Someone was like, man, I hope she doesn't put Deebo Samuel in. It might have been our dad. Like, Dad, yeah, you're good, man. Don't worry. I don't even think she knows how to log in anymore. Turns out that was true. She does not know how to log in. But that being said, who am I to know? Who am I to say? I've come in second place on a fantasy football league one time. So apparently she has it down. Don't pay attention. Don't draft your own team. Don't forget the login password, and you'll probably end up being a champ. It seems like a good strategy.
Yeah, no, and it's like, it's so frustrating, just because if you saw it, like, I was worried that she was going to send something out, because it looks poorly on me. Because if you really dug deep into how she won that last week, it was embarrassing. So just quickly, she basically had 4 zeros on board, and just because we do a 2-week championship, so she beat me by like 15 points the first week. I had a couple of tough situations with some of my players, and it wasn't the best team I've ever had. So I wasn't expecting to win, but there's a little bit of hope, because again, she had 4 zeros. One player, they didn't play him. So they didn't play Joe Mixon last week. So it was like he's sitting, and then she kept the Broncos defense, who, as everyone knows, were playing the Kansas City Chiefs in. They got -1 points, and she had 2 other players that just didn't do anything. So I couldn't overcome that. Thank you, Taysom Hill. So that's partially his fault. You just had to get hurt on that, early in the first quarter. And I also want to blame Matthew Stafford, because there was a real moment at that last afternoon game. What was it? Rams Niners, that I thought we were going to, Jimmy G led the offense down. They got the field over. And
I think so.
Then the Rams started. They had 2 minutes left, and I just needed a 2-minute drive to kind of just tie up the game. And then, of course, Matt Stafford throws that long ball with 2 minutes left. I feel like we could have, done a couple of plays. I mean, you're one of the best offenses of the league, and so you just throw one up to Odell and gets picked off. Because if had they, drove down the field and just kicked any sort of field goal would have worked, I would have won. But thank you, Matt. So I'm officially out on the Rams this playoffs, and I'm going to be rooting very hard against them.
Yeah, so you're out on the Rams, out on Ginger Spice, out
I'm
on
just
a
out.
lot of things.
I'm starting the year out on a lot of things.
2022 is a rough one for you.
Yeah.
Hopefully it gets better. Because can't get any worse, right?
Yeah, probably.
So, anyways, we just wanted to dedicate a little time to that because it was ridiculous, and I'm sure some of you are thinking that's awesome. No, it's not awesome. It's not awesome when you're in the league with Deb, and she wins the whole thing. And like you said, she took to, as soon as she found out, she took to social media immediately, and it was a tough one. But anyways,
I do want to applaud myself because I did take the high road. I had a couple jokes in mind that I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be a good loser today. But I had a couple jokes,
Yeah, I'm sure you did. If we ever start a Patreon, we'll let you just rip those jokes off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah.
One day when we hit the Patreon page, it'll be the uncensored version of the podcast. Podcast. Hey, we should do a roast episode of this podcast. Like the Comedy Central roast. That'd be fun.
Oh yeah, I don't see why we haven't done it. Like a roast of who? You and Deb, or just Deb?
Oh, that'd be fun. I was thinking, I mean, because Deb has, so many people that she's connected with, so many friends. As you and I have talked, we keep our circle pretty tight. So I don't know how many people would be.
That's just code, at least in mine. Like, you have a family, that's code for Jordan doesn't have any friends. So I just want to make that very clear. That's like a really positive spin on. Yeah, my brother's a dork, and this is how he spends his weeknights is podcasting about fantasy football.
I would never call you a dork. I wouldn't have you on here if that was the case.
I did text you that comment today. I listened to the podcast where you're just like, oh, he's so creative. And it's like, well, I think that's code for he's of the mindset that like no idea is a bad idea. So he just throws stuff against the wall and occasionally one sticks. But usually it's a lot of nonsense.
No, but that's still creativity, man. I think that's still creativity because there's so many people that are like, I'm not creative, because when they try to think of something, they can't even think of stuff to throw against the wall. So part of creativity is making a mess, right? And yeah, some of your ideas I will not share here, but yeah, some of his ideas are pretty wild. It's like, yeah, maybe it'd be a good idea. And those are like, yeah, probably not. So that's all I'm saying. I meant that when I said it. So just take the compliment and shut up. we're going to move on. So today we're going to do a top 5 episode because those are so much fun. Before we do that though, I do want to point out that even though you lost in the tournament, people really do. I do get a lot of comments about your episodes, and also some of the episodes you and I have done have charted pretty high on the top 10, top to 15 of all the episodes we've ever done. One being the Am I the A-hole? That episode's done very well. It picked up steam late because at first it did not have a solid first week. I'm like, well, this might have been a miss, and then all of a sudden I saw it just climb, and pretty soon it's one of our top episodes. So you should feel good about that, man.
Yeah, you hear that, Paul Piercy? Awesome episode, huh?
Yeah. Hey, man, 380 people did not care.
yeah, exactly. No, he seems like a very nice young man. So
he's a good guy.
No hard feelings personally.
Yeah, competitively, got some hard feelings.
Yeah, I'm gonna be bitter. I'm gonna buy votes next year, and I want to be matched up against them. So
there you go. So anyways, we're trying to decide which kind of top 5 we wanted to do. And I think this will be a fun one. Now, Jordan and I, just so everybody knows, when we were doing the Character Combine podcast, I think, was it the first or second time that you joined me? Probably the second time. Mm-hmm. We did something where we, very similar to this one, but we did playground games, which I almost wanted to run that one back because I feel like my takes on some of that stuff might be a little bit different. But we just said, hey, what are your top 5 playground games? So we have a little bit of a twist on that. So instead of focusing on the games, we've all been on a playground. We've all been around classmates. We all know that a lot of times, it doesn't matter what school, doesn't matter what area the school's in. A lot of times schools during recess, during playtime, break time, lunchtime, there's just a lot of the similar personalities on the school grounds at that time. And so today we're just going to talk about the top 5 playground personalities. And when I say top 5, I don't mean like our top 5 favorite. When we say top 5, it's like the top 5 that come to our mind. So when we say, hey, we're going to do an episode on playground personalities or playground stereotypes, what comes to mind for you? So just to make that clear, these are just the ones that came to our minds when we were thinking about that. So I don't know who wants to start this thing off. You want to go, or you want me to go?
Yeah, I mean, I can go.
Okay, let's hear it.
And these aren't in any particular order. Usually
That's
I
okay.
try and save the best one for last. I don't know which of these are good.
We'll
So I'm
find
going to
out.
go. I think, and part of me was having a tough time because, like you said, we did a similar one earlier. So I don't know which ones I'm repeating. So it sounds like it's a different audience.
Completely different audience.
So I'm going to go with the kid that just consistently just changes the rules or just blatantly breaks the rules and wants to argue about it. So
The rule breaker, the rule
the
breaker,
or changer, because I
the
think
changer.
when you get into rule changes, like I think of something like Foursquare or Tetherball. I think those were like the biggest ones where rules were changed. You add like these weird um like special moves that people could do, like a cherry bomb in Foursquare, which I feel like that was just a ploy just to get kids that wanted to stay on. Same with like Tetherball, like stuff like I don't know, people probably my age or around in our community know what like a ropey is.
Yeah.
Like I still don't know how to play tetherball like for real because I just grew up with these like Wild West rules where it's like, oh yeah, I can just grab the ball, throw it as hard as I can.
Right.
Um, so I feel like that's definitely a kid that like will want to break the rules, change the rules, add this stuff. And I would love to know like an oral history on where some of this stuff comes from, because I'm sure it was passed down from like people your age to, their younger brothers, like myself, where it's like, hey, you could do these cherry bombs and this, master blast. I don't even know. It's just like, they just come out of nowhere, and as a kid you just kind of accept that it's rules because it's the playground, and whoever goes. But I would say that kid is I think it's fine when you're in the moment and the present participating, but then you get like looking back like what 20 years or whatever, and it's like, oh, they're just this is kind of bushily what they're doing, and again, I still don't know how to play tetherball the right way because I've just grown up with these bushly rules.
Right. Well, I also feel like that person, you could also like a sub nickname would be like the game ender, because a lot of times games end because of that person. Because at a certain point, people get sick of their rule changes in the middle of the game. It's like, I'm done. It's kind of like I'm taking my ball and going home situation. So yeah, that person is annoying when they do that, because like, it doesn't matter what game it is either. Like you said, and I agree with you. At our elementary school, I think it was probably most prominent in those two, but it doesn't matter. Like they always change the rules, and especially like there's certain games too where it's a little bit more fluid, like tag. It's like, oh, we play
Mhm.
freeze tag, or it's like, oh, I thought we were playing this kind of tag. Like they just change the rules in the middle of the game. Like, so you've never been like officially tagged. You've never been knocked out of a game. It's amazing. How does that work?
Are you
Like,
Jeremy Renner? Like,
yeah,
why have you been tagged?
I like that movie.
It's
it's
very stupid, but
it's
it's enjoyable.
it's so dumb, but yeah, I enjoy tag. But yeah, no, that's a good one. That's a very good one, because I think it doesn't matter whatever playground you were part of, that kid existed. Absolutely. Um, I'm gonna go with, okay. So I named this kid, either like the bopper or the thumper. I think I think we all have an idea, especially the thumper. I think most schools have a kid that is basically a man child. Supposedly they're in fifth or sixth grade, but truly they look like they could be teaching someone's class. Like this kid's just massive, and especially when if you're someone who loves sports and loves playing sports during recess, it's like the kid if you're playing kickball. That kid comes up, the kid kicks it a mile, kicks it all the way across the playground, gets a double out of it, because he's not very fast, but he's got a lot of power in those legs and that body. And so, it's a kid that's terrifying, and you got to be careful. Like he's probably not the best at basketball, but you also don't want to run into him, because if you get, if he sets a pick, you run into him, it's gonna be a rough day for you. You're probably gonna end up on the asphalt. But it's a very specific kid. Like this kid stands out amongst everybody else on the playground. Like if you're like a parent visiting and you just look out across the playground during recess, it's like, oh, someone needs to call the cops because there's a grown man just playing with our kids. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's little Johnny. He's in class with my son and daughter. Like there's always that kid, and just a kid that grows way faster than everybody else, and is a little bit more dominant on the recess. That being said, kind of dominant, because it is tough watching some of those kids play tag.
Mhm.
It's basically just running circles around them. But anything that has a little bit more of a physical element to it, it's usually a problem. Usually a problem.
Yeah, no, I agree. I have someone just exactly my. It was a buddy that went to elementary school with, and he was from or he's Ukrainian, and he didn't play a lot of some of the more organized sports. Like he'll play, he was pretty well liked and would play kind of whatever the majority of the group was playing. And there was some seasons where like football was a big thing. And you could tell he never played a ton of football growing up. Like it wasn't like he was as skilled as maybe some of the other kids that played pee wee football, or whatever they call it. I think it's not politically correct what they call it
Sure.
nowadays. But yeah, no, so like those guys would come in with their like Chris Johnson jerseys and LaDainian Tomlinson jerseys. So, and they could, they were very skilled and they could catch the ball, and you could tell their routes were a little crisper. But once in a while, this other kid, he was definitely a huskier kid and tall. And when he would play, it's like, yeah, you don't know 100% if he's going to catch the ball, but when he does, he turns into like Derrick Henry. And it's like, you try and tackle this kid, and it's just like, good luck. He's going to take you for a ride.
Right. What was, again, speaking of not being politically correct, I'll be as descriptive as possible, and hopefully, I think anybody our age probably knows what I'm referring to. There was a game that a lot of times at a birthday party, or like a sports team,
After baseball,
after
when you're
baseball.
waiting for dad to pick you up.
Yeah, there's a certain game that used to be played where there would be a ball, someone would grab the ball, and everybody else who was playing would try to tackle this person. Again, if you know what I'm talking about, great. Why I can't say the name, but there's that was a big game I remember playing at birthday parties where throw the ball and everybody would chase this one person and try to tackle them. And it was always rough when that kid was playing, because one, you didn't want to get hit by them because it was game over. They would just crush you. And then two, if they ever got the ball, like you said, to your point, it's basically just hold on for your life, because you have like all these other kids just hanging onto him, dragging them by the legs, the arms, and this kid's just like walking around like the Hulk. It's like just flicking people off. It's it's a different thing. And usually I feel like that a lot of times those kids that I've known didn't like stand out above everybody else when they grew up. Like they were still a big person, but they weren't like a giant compared to everybody else. But when you're in elementary school, it's a huge size difference. So that's my first one, the thumper.
Okay, so is my second one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think I'm going to switch my order up a little bit since we're talking about that kind of that physicality of it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's for most elementary schools. Kind of had a similar rule where you weren't, for liability reasons, you weren't allowed to play tackle football.
Mm-hmm.
But and without going into the description of where, or the geography of kind of the map of my school, like there is definitely a bigger hill where you could play at recess, and it's for 5th and 6th grade only, so upperclassmen of the elementary school. And there was a side field where it was a little bit more hidden from the yard duties, because the yard duties were very clearly instructed to make sure no kids play tackle. So I guess my next person is the kid that insists on playing tackle football, and kind of hand in hand, the kid that's like on lookout for the yard duty, and shuts it down and says, hey, tag yard duty. Because it really is like, as soon as your feet hit the grass and the ball's in the air, it's like, hey, we're going tackle. We don't do two-hand touch. Like no one's going to get hurt. And again, you always have the one kid who's designated as the lookout, maybe not the most important player on the field, maybe a bottom tier player, but it's like it's basically like he's the lookout for the wire.
Right.
like the guys that yell when Omar's coming.
Omar's coming.
Omar's coming. It's basically what it's like. Yard dude's coming, and then everyone plays nice, and we're giving handshakes, and we're playing with sportsmanship. Whereas 5 seconds earlier, we were pile driving this kid.
It was blitz.
Yeah, it basically blitzed the league, and so it's just like I'm gonna just that's always super memorable because again, it's very much I don't know if people will get this reference if they've seen the other guys when Mark Wahlberg and who is it, the Wayne's brother and Rob Riggle.
Rob Riggle, yeah.
Rob Riggle. They're fighting at the funeral, so they're like peaceful 1 second, and then they start fight. That's basically what it turns into, and so that's always super memorable. And like I said, is the kid that's the lookout that always shuts it down. And I can't think of a time where we were really ever caught. So
that means you chose the right lookout. That's funny because I actually have the lookout on my list as well for different reasons, but similar, right? Like, again, that specific school that we went to, in the back corners and back edges of the playground, there's a little bit of a hill beyond the fence. And, every once in a while, like a ball would go down there and you weren't supposed to go down there, even if a ball went down there or something went down there. And you just have someone's like, all right, I'm going for it. And they would hop the fence or go into the fence. Like you'd have all these people looking out. And I'm sure that yard duty's like, oh, that's weird. There's a huge group all facing back at the playground by the fence. I wonder what's going on over there. But that's funny. I had the exact same thing. The lookout. It's an important part of the playground.
Yeah. And like I said, it never failed. We never got caught. So
you guys chose the right person then.
Yep.
Okay, let's see. This one I'm just going to skip. I'll go over really quickly. It's just like the athlete. There's always that athletic kid that no matter what the sport was, no matter what the game was, would just dominate in everything. And everybody wanted them on their team. They were always the first pick. Sometimes like you play kickball, they just magically had like an extra at bat. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, that's weird. I feel like you just kicked. Why are you already up again? Like, I feel like weird stuff like that would happen. But, everybody loved this person, loved playing sports with them, unless you were playing against them. And then it was like, why are we even playing? This kid's going to crush us. There's no point. So the athlete I thought was just one that I thought of, like a super simple one. Nothing big there. But I'm just going to tack on another one since we were talking about the lookout. There is another person. I don't know if you ever experienced this, but the snitch. The snitch is basically the enemy of the lookout because they are just determined to share any information they get with the teacher, with the yard duty, anything like that. And I remember specific moments where we were playing a game, something went sideways. There was either a small little scuffle, this little snitch kid got hurt somehow, someone hurt his feelings, and all of a sudden it was a march to find the nearest teacher or the nearest yard duty. Now again, the place we went was a pretty big, they had a big field and a big asphalt area. And I can remember specific times when all the way out in the field, something would happen, this kid would get upset, and then he was crying and then marching back towards the school. And what that meant for everybody who was involved in this little scuffle was that you had from the field until the building to convince this kid not to spill the beans. And you could always tell what was going on because you'd have this like massive group around this kid, and they're like, "Oh, please don't tell, please don't tell." Sometimes it would work, and you could convince the kid, and then he felt like he just had like these best friends for the rest of the day because they would do anything it took to not get in trouble. And then sometimes the kid's like, "So you say whatever you want. You offer me money, you can offer me food. Nothing's going to prevent me from telling everything. I'm going to tell everything right now." And then you would see him like go up to the teacher, and then the teacher would like scan the playground looking for the people that he was talking about. But that was always my favorite part, when you had that window where it's like, okay, this is like a negotiation. This is like Denzel in Inside Man. Like you have to, this is a hostage negotiation. They're like, this kid has your freedom in the palm of his hands, and you have to convince him to let go of the bomb. That's what it's like. And I always love seeing that because it was, you had some kids that were pretty good at it, and they could convince the kid not to spill the beans. And like I said, some kids, you couldn't do anything. They're just like determined to get people in trouble.
Right. And so like I have two things to add on. So one,
Please.
is, like you said, there's that short window of crying to yard duty where you try and convince them. But then once you're too close to the yard, once the crying kid's too close to the yard duty, then there's another window where you scatter to different games in the playground. So you have two kids go play kickball, two kids go to wall ball. And so they're just, you can see the yard duties from far away trying to look for these kids as the crying kids describing them or saying their names. But at that point, everyone scatters, and it really is like a prison break where you're just like, I'm hoping I don't get caught, and I'm hoping I can blend in with this other group of kids. Two, I think another issue I have with that kid, because that kid is just prevalent everywhere, is at our school, and I don't know if this was different for you, any sort of like public good behavior or like good citizenship on the yard, you would get these things called gotchas, and it's like it's like, it's just like a little, basically a raffle ticket almost, and it just has print on it gotcha being good. So that was also a problem, because you kind of perpetuate like systematic snitching, because you're rewarding these kids and by giving them, incentivizing them with gotchas that they could later turn into like Otter Pops or something. So like that, like it was definitely a mischievous way to kind of get gotchas, and you're just kind of creating maybe a problematic behavior by snitching. And I was thinking about this, like sometimes I think about how I would run a school, and I would definitely like do like the gotcha situation, but name them gotcha being a douchebag, because that's what I give to the snitch, is gotcha being a douchebag. And like I don't know what the punishment would be. Like I'm sure the educators that listen, I know there are quite a few, wouldn't be thrilled with this, specifically your mother-in-law. I'm probably going to be seeing her the next couple of weeks, so I'm hoping she doesn't bring this incident up. But it's just like, yeah, I caught you being a douchebag. Stop being a douchebag.
Yeah.
So I'll go email that to our former elementary school and see what they think about that idea.
Sure. Why not? I'll tell you this. I would bet you on certain days the teachers would be like, you know what? Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea.
I've seen some of Deb's stories. I know there are days where she'd give a caught you being a douchebag.
That would be funny.
I think we should have those at work, dude. I had a meeting today where it's like I could have dished out like 3 or 4 of those.
But you remember with the gotchas though, you collected so many, and then you got like a bigger ticket, right? Like there was a bigger ticket that you could get.
Yeah.
And that was like like that was the thing you turned in for the popsicle. And maybe that's what happens if you get 5 of the gotcha being a douche. Then I don't know. I mean, you're the only one in the dodge on the other side of dodgeball.
Yeah.
People's, hey, this is 5 minutes of playing dodgeball, and guess what? You're never out.
Right.
Because you just keep getting hit by the ball until that 5 minutes is up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, I don't know if you knew this. We have a guy who's going to a D1 school to play baseball. He's got a cannon. Good luck.
Hey, guess what? Bryce Harper is a guest speaker. Ever heard of him?
Yeah. Hey, Aroldis Chapman's here. You've been hit by 100 miles an hour. You're about to find out. Yeah, that probably wouldn't fly, but maybe it's not a bad idea. But no, yeah. So, anyways, that the snitch thing, that was always a big thing, and to add on to that, there was also sometimes those situations where if it was like a little squirrely kid and it was just looking for an opportunity to snitch on people, and say he got hurt somehow, or someone, like he ran his mouth, like this happens sometimes, he ran his mouth, then a bigger, stronger kid decided, I'm not going to take this, pushed him down, hit him with a ball, whatever it might have been. And he's like, oh, it's unfair. And then he runs and tells the teacher. And then you have all of the girls in that class surrounding this kid, giving sympathy, like, oh my gosh, you're a victim. I can't believe this happened to you. It's like, okay, ladies, this kid is not a victim. This kid started it, could not finish it, and now he's paying the price. But you guys are giving into this. That I remember a couple of times. There was one kid specifically would do this all the time, and then he would just be coddled. I'm like, I'm gonna be sick. This is disgusting.
No, that's true. I'm not gonna lie. That sounded kind of personal. But I know everyone knows you as a nice guy. So I'm sure you've never gotten into a scuffle at school before. So we probably don't. I mean, unless you do have a story in which you, I don't know,
Sure.
Happen to get in a fight at school?
I've got some stories. No, not that many, but no, when I was in kindergarten, there was a kid. I can't even tell you what the issue was, but now this being said, I want to point this out. Like when I was growing up, I was always tall and really skinny, and I had a big head. I still have a big head, but when you're tall and skinny at that age, it definitely stands out. So that being said, the kid that I got into it with was even skinnier, had an even bigger head, and was like just proportionally just way off. And so something happened. I shoved him, and here's the thing: it wasn't a fight. It was a one shove, knocked him into the mud. Game over.
Cobra Kai, no mercy.
Yeah, no mercy. Yeah, Cobra Kai. I strike first. No mercy. And so so he's in the mud, and then he goes in and tells the teacher. So he snitched on me. He was also the victim of the situation, and he goes in, and because my reputation at that point was really good, the teacher knew our mom. There was another Josh in the class who was a thumper, going back to my previous one, big boy, and he was always in trouble. And so when this kid went in and said, "Hey, Josh pushed me in the mud," she's like, where's the other Josh? And he's like, no, it was Josh Takimoto. She's like, Josh Takimoto would never do that. Like, you're right, teacher.
That's discrimination, son. Stop picking on the Asian kid.
Yeah, stop this. And so finally found out that it was me. I pushed him in the mud. And to make it worse, this is the worst part about the whole thing. I could have just gotten in trouble. You put me in that black timeout chair, to call my parents, fine. I'll accept that punishment. The part that sucked was she's like, now you need to be nice. It was like a lesson. She was using it as a lesson to be compassionate and kind. I had to take paper towels and help dry him off. You know how humiliating that is? That's like if we were in the octagon, I knocked the person out. I clearly won. And they're like, hey, why don't you shove some of those cold packs on his neck, put some of the tissue in his nose, clean him up a little bit, walk him back to the locker room. You did win, but you also lost. So help him out. That's what it felt like.
Dana White said it's too brutal of a knockout.
It was too brutal. This was not nice. So yes, I did do that. And that was fun. Like I said, but instead of being surrounded by like girls, after that, he was surrounded by the thumpers, a couple of thumpers. It was like his bodyguards. It's like, man, this didn't play out for you at all, did it? He's got a couple of burly boys hanging out with you now. But that happened. In elementary school, I spit at a kid. Yeah, I used that real.
Here we go.
That baseball. Yeah, that baseball ability that I learned how to spit pretty well. And the funny thing about that was just a verbal thing. We were just going back and forth. This little kid that was running his mouth, and got to the point where he was saying something, and I went, just shot one right at his foot, landed on his shoe. Very disrespectful. And then it's like, all right, cool, game over, walk away. Well, apparently this kid told on me. He told me, hey, your shoes sucked anyways. It's like, my shoes weren't that cool, but yours really weren't that cool. A little spit. If anything, I did you a favor. You can use that spit to wipe off the dirt that's on your shoes. But instead, you went to go tell people, and then before I knew it, I was in the principal's office and with me and a friend of mine, and we're trying to explain this was not our fault. When bottom line is I spit at a kid like a freaking camel out there.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the guy that is talking to your young athletes. I just want to point that out.
It's like spit with purpose.
Spit with purpose.
If you're gonna spit for a reason. But so that was not good, and nothing horrible happened. But my mom did find out, and I had to go to the school later that night because they were having some kind of performance for a different grade level. And mom took me around the school to find the principal to apologize.
So you have to clean the kid's shoes like the teacher made you in kindergarten?
That would be tough. Luckily, we were in fourth or fifth grade, so I got to avoid that. But yeah, that stuff that happens every once in a while. Spit at a kid, push a kid in the mud. Nothing horrible. Now, I will say, I'm pretty sure the kid that I spit at, I think he did some time in prison. So maybe, hey, school, maybe I was onto something. Maybe I was serving out a little justice, and you guys missed an opportunity to teach that kid a lesson. I don't know.
You're shutting down a vigilante. I
I
will
know.
say, I know you don't get too personal on this podcast, but both of your daughters, they seem very much like the kids that are gonna, do some time in the principal's office. They're both ornery. The older one's a talker, so she's gonna get in trouble with her mouth. The second one, she's gonna get in trouble with her fists. Okay, so just keep an eye on that, tighten it up, because the cycle is going to repeat, and you're going to get these same conferences. And I know you will handle it maybe better than your wife, because your wife does not put up with that type of behavior.
Yeah, well, yeah, we've had conversations about that before, and obviously joking because we don't want to end up in that situation. But my thought is like, if one of them gets into a fight, like, well, what did the other kid do? And like you said, our oldest, she's pretty funny, and some of the stuff she says, so I can imagine, yeah, it very much could be like a joke gone wrong. It's like, well, at that point it's like, well, let me help you with your timing a little bit. Maybe we can tighten the joke up and make it better. Maybe you're just working it out. Maybe they didn't understand, but hopefully it doesn't happen. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But yeah, no, you're very you're very much onto something. I think they're gonna be spirited for sure. Yeah. Very much spirited. So that was mine. So I kind of combined a couple there, but okay. What do you got?
I wish I would have stopped you when you did like the best athlete.
Oh yeah, go ahead though.
Well, I guess I'm going to argue against you right now, because you made it seem like a positive. So in my experience, there wasn't one just alpha dude for every sport. Like, you definitely had one dude that was sick at football. Yeah. A couple dudes that were just, spot 3-point shooters of basketball. And so everything, it just kind of depended on the sport. So there wasn't one guy, but I do think like a common theme amongst like the number ones, and I just labeled this the number one option, is like, they definitely played that. Like, I'm thinking specifically of basketball, probably because it wasn't a sport I was good at. So they definitely were early adopters. Like, they were Russell Westbrook before Russell Westbrook. So like, they definitely were into the ISO ball. They would hog the ball. Like, it'd be something where, someone maybe not as good like myself would be in the corner open, and I say, hey, pass me the ball. He wouldn't pass me the ball. But when the roles were reversed, I get a rebound. I'm transitioning down the court. It's like he could have seven people on him, and I take a spot up three and make it. And he's like, hey, why didn't you pass me the ball? It's like, well, you had 7 dudes on you. So like, they definitely like early adopter,
like The Office, the basketball game.
Yeah, exactly. So they're early adopters of like that Russell Westbrook. I'm going to take it, and no one else is going to shoot, and then complain when they don't get the ball. So I saw those guys maybe like I said, specifically basketball, because that's a sport I couldn't compete in. Like, kickball, I could probably, wasn't the best athlete, but I could hang with that. Dodgeball, I always had a pretty good arm, so that was never an issue. But it's those sports where it's one ball, and you just have that dude that thinks, oh, I'm going to take over. Like, hey, you're not LeBron. Okay.
Yeah, calm down. Well, that happened in football too. When you would play football out there, that kid was the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And what it was like, you had to wait 7 alleys before you could rush in, or you had to call blitz. It's amazing. You know what? He never got rid of the ball in under 7 seconds. And it was always just scrambling, rolling out, scrambling, looking for someone. It's like waving his hand, go, go, go. It's like everybody in your team's open. You throw the ball up in the air, you're probably going to hit a teammate. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I had to run. And then they just rush every time. It's like, this is nonsense. What are we doing?
He's constantly calling his own number.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It's like what the movie Replacements. He's like, what champions want the ball in their hands? It's like this kid, that's all he wanted to do.
Yeah. He's listened to was it Gene Hackman just over and over again, just with that line.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Chicks dig scars.
Glory lasts forever.
Yeah, it's basically that kid. It's like, man, it's it's tough. It's tough playing with those guys in those sports. It was always obnoxious because you and I aren't fans of this sport, but playing with soccer, because you would have a kid, like we never had kids that were like amazing at soccer, but we had 1 or 2 that were really good and way better than everybody else. And they were doing stuff that no one else could do. And that's where it gets so annoying. It's like, okay, yeah, we all get that you love soccer. You're way better than us. but maybe less juggling. Maybe just pass the ball every once in a while. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna play your club team later. You know, this is for the amateurs. Let it go, dude.
See, I don't think my class had that issue. Like, I think just naturally, um, just throughout like middle school or elementary school, middle school, high school, like the girls were always kind of more accomplished athletes. So we had some pretty sick girls that,
Yeah.
maybe not in elementary school, they definitely played varsity,
Yeah.
later in high school, but even in high school, we had some that went like D1 and stuff. So I feel like that just because girls are just more involved and it wasn't as big of a deal. Like they could definitely show off and work some of the RL kids that we play against, but they would definitely be not as ball centric, I guess. So they were a little bit easier to play with than maybe a dude that is, thinks he's Ronaldo.
Right. I played with one kid that, going back to football, he would just run with the ball, and the entire time he would run with the ball, he'd be like, "Juki fruit, juki fruit." Every time, just running through people, spinning around people. It's like, all right, hey man, we get it. But no, speaking of the RL thing, so I'm sure most schools have some kind of program like this, but our school had a rapid learn. I almost said something completely different. I almost went the slang route.
Well, that was,
We've joked about that too much. Rapid learners, and so it's like a little bit like an honors class, advanced class, and that was always kind of like a not gang war, but right, that was always there was always a kind of a beef between the two.
mm-hmm.
That like the haves and have nots, and so sometimes that would come to fruition on the sports field, and competitions would go down between the RL classes and call them regular classes, I guess. which
Offensive.
I know, but we were a part of the regular
Yeah.
classes, so you have these battles go on, right? And it was always these heated rivalries. But I'll never forget, there was one girl who was, again, an amazing soccer player, but she was an RL. It was amazing, kind of like the kid who changes the rules. It's like, oh, we're gonna crush you guys, except for her. She can be on our team because she's cool. So it's like you just basically poached your favorite person just because you liked her and she was really good, but no one else. There was one kid that would just knew the words to that Christina Aguilera song, "Genie in the Bottle," and the whole time he was on their team, on the RL team, just the whole time he wouldn't even play the ball. He could pass him, and he was like just sing "Genie in a Bottle" and do the hip motions. I'm like, what is going on here?
You just got to rub them the right way. That's
Yeah.
how you get them to play, man. You want them to perform. You just gotta,
Yeah, probably not a lot of people in my class that were willing to do that, but yeah,
they play that song in Rayleigh sometimes. I feel very uncomfortable.
it's not the right place for that song.
No, it's like really only meant for, I don't even know if roller rinks are still alive, but it's really a roller rink thing.
I saw a video of some guys at roller rink on Instagram the other day. It was like 5 or 6 older guys, like elderly guys, just
Wow.
really doing the thing out there. Really, I'm like, I don't think I've ever been able to skate that well. I usually crash in the wall at some point.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time we saw an adult. Actually, I know the last time I saw an adult there.
Anyways, let's keep it moving.
Whoops.
Whoops. So
I don't know. Is it me again, or do you? I have 2 more.
I have one more.
Okay, so I'll just do mine.
Yeah, go ahead and do yours.
Okay, this one's gonna be a short one, but kind of like when I said we designated kind of the watch person. There would always, like at the end of the like the period or whatever, right before recess, you would always designate like the ball person, because the way we had it, each teacher would purchase their own balls, and so you have a ball bin in the classroom, but there's also a ball bin kind of outdoors, and it's kind of free for all. So whoever gets there first gets whatever they choose.
Mhm.
So whatever the game of the season was, whether it was like kickball, football, basketball, foursquare, like you knew there was one ball that was the elite tier ball. It's like, we need to get that ball, otherwise we get like the big like oval lumpy ball. And so there's always the one like the fastest kid that would race out of the classroom as soon as the bell rang and would run, try and go get the ball. And you just had to pray that you liked the kid that was designated the ball person, because if you didn't like the kid, he could change a lot of fortunes that day and play something you don't want to play. So they
Right.
could, if you didn't want to play kickball, he could force everyone to play kickball because that's the good ball, So I think that you always wanted to be friends with that guy and hope he makes the right choice in what game we wanted to play.
Yeah. No, that's, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was talking to Rachel about this a little bit. Obviously I've mentioned this before. My wife's a teacher. So she's grown up in school. Obviously she went to school, but her parents were teachers as well. So she's just been around a lot of school. But yeah, one of the things that she mentioned was the kid who eats super fast at lunch just so they can get to recess faster. And I think that's basically the kid you're talking about, because they will shovel in those chicken nuggets and that rice pilaf just to get out there to the ball pit or to the ball bin to dictate what goes down that day. So yeah, that is very fun. That's very funny, because what you're saying about the type of balls too, it's no joke. Like, you got to get out there to get the best balls, because there was the one that was shaped like a pill, like you said, that was a yellow. It was technically okay. Here's the thing: when the teacher, like you said, when the teacher would buy the ball for the class, first of all, that was a huge indicator about how much that teacher actually cared about their students. Because you mentioned this before, but if that ball container was full of just nice shiny balls, different sizes, all pumped up, it's like, you know what, that teacher, that educator loves the game. They love the students, and they're meant to do this. And then you know the other one where it's like a jump rope with one handle, a flat ball, a football. They called it a football, but it was actually a rugby ball. A couple of tennis balls that had like slits in them that were really used for some old person's walker. It's like, you could tell, like, oh, this person loves education, but they don't care about physical education. They're like, that's what PE is for, not me. I'm not buying any of this crap for you guys. Deal with it. So that's something I full-heartedly agree with. But like I said, you would get those one balls. They had the yellow ones that were big, because they had like the smaller red ones, which were more preferable for like dodgeball, even kickball. But they had the big yellow one that was meant for, I don't know what. Like, no one really liked those balls, but it was cool when they had the brand new one. But then over time, it would it would elongate, and you're basically just playing with a big pill. Like, it's like a gigantic Tylenol tablet. And it's one of those things where if you're playing kickball with that ball, first of all, the pitcher would have to roll it a very specific way. Otherwise, it's like you're rolling a giant egg. And then if you kicked a pop-up that came straight down on third base, instead of just bouncing straight back up, that ball would bounce all the way to first base because it was so oddly shaped. It was the worst.
It's like kickball's equivalent for like baseball. It's spider tack for kickball. Like, any baseball fans know, like, there's a big lockdown on a shutdown on spider tack. That's what it was, because you're right. It would put movement on the pitch. It would make weird things would happen in the air, and it really was like, it would, like, instead of a roll, it would wobble.
Yeah, it would wobble. Did you guys ever have those basketballs that had the massive welts on them?
No.
Okay, so we would have those every once in a while, where again, if the teacher didn't care about you, then they would have this ball that was, supposedly it was a basketball, but it basically just looked like an orange ball because all of the texture had been rubbed off. You could barely see the lines. It was super smooth. But what would happen is there would be like a deformity in the ball. So it's like, like a cartoon where if a cartoon gets hit in the head, you see like this like throbbing like lump on their head.
Right.
That's basically what this basketball
Like a
had.
boil.
Like a boil. Yeah.
Yeah.
This ball had a massive pimple. And then you're trying to go out there, and same thing, you bounce in the basketball, and all of a sudden you bounce, shoots off to the side because it hit the boil. And it's like, man, that's what we're supposed to play with. Now I get, like I said, we're just being silly here. I know that not every situation can afford these balls. I'm talking about like our situation, and some of those teachers that did not afford the best balls for their classes is like, hey, I saw what car you drove up in. Like, don't think that went unnoticed. I saw what you drove up in. Don't tell me that you couldn't afford it. You couldn't have afforded just a cheap ball, because you are balling in life.
It's like for for our elementary school people, it's like, why can Brent Fulmer have like a stable of balls, and another teacher can't? I don't understand. What are we doing here?
What are we doing? See, yeah, Mr. Fulmer never let people down. You know what I mean? He was always good. Mrs. Dobrinick, one of my favorite teachers ever. She was always solid, would always provide, awesome stuff. I actually feel like I got got really lucky with the teachers that I had. Like they were all really good and they provided that stuff. Like I said, I do know that as I was walking like from our classroom to, lunch or to recess, you would pass by those other ball containers and think, oh, those poor kids. They don't even know. They don't even know what the other side lives like.
Mhm.
We're living the good life and they're just, dealing with some nonsense. So, um, so that was your fourth one.
Yes.
Okay. So I got my last one here. So this one, it definitely happens as you get into the upper grades of elementary school. So I'd say probably for me, starting at fourth, fifth, sixth grade, this is when this happens more. Obviously, uh, the attention that people pay to the opposite sex increases, right? The older they get, all of a sudden you start having crushes on people. Uh, People start dating, if you will. Uh, and I know, especially like I said, fifth and sixth grade, especially, people would start dating, and then all of a sudden, again, I hung out with primarily guys when I was in elementary school, played at recess, did all that stuff. So I'm speaking from this perspective, but one of your guys would get a girlfriend, and guess what? Who's missing from kickball that day? Your buddy, because he's over on the playground talking to the girl. He's basically dead to you for that entire period during recess because he's just so infatuated by his new girlfriend that he has no time for kicking balls around. He has no time for shooting the basketball or throwing the football. He's just gone. Now, usually in elementary school, it lasts for a very short amount of time. So it's like you'll see him again later. But in the moment, it feels like, oh, he's just busy right now. And then when it's over because he's back full in on the game. It's like, oh, this didn't last because he's back with the team. But yeah, I'll never forget that. Like you could always tell when someone was like just infatuated with someone or was dating someone, dating someone with the quotes, because you just didn't see them. And like the game they loved all of a sudden was a distant memory and they had no time for it. Did you experience that at all?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
All the
definitely.
time,
Like
right?
you
Yeah.
expect someone, it's like, hey, no, I got that. He's gonna be in the slot this recess, right? So we're gonna put him in the slot receiver. Like that's his position, and he's nowhere to be found. And then you're kind of you're weak there. So it's just
Right.
like, hey man, you let the team down. So I hope you're happy. I
Yeah.
hope you're happy that little Brittany, got someone to talk to.
Yeah. Enjoy
But
your guys' your otter pops together. I hope you enjoyed your otter pop date. You
yeah,
jerk.
I hope you choke on it because
Yeah.
again, we're missing our slot receiver.
I threw 3 interceptions because of you.
Yeah.
Where were you supposed? You were supposed to be there. I was. I got sacked for real behind the building because we were playing tackle football. No one had my blind side.
Exactly.
It was just a block for me. I got lit up by the thumper. Yeah, yeah. It's always funny seeing that stuff unfold. I remember one time there was this dude that did a talent show, and he sang because Titanic was big when I was in elementary school, and he sang the Titanic song with his other girl. And all of a sudden, I was like, he could not get more attention from the girls at recess. It was like this. It was like literally like a celebrity being followed by TMZ. Just every scene, it's like, what is going on over there? Oh, they're following the dude that just sang that song. Was he that good of a singer? No, he wasn't. But did it matter? No, not really. Not really. It was a good day for him. I'll never forget that. It's weird some of that stuff that you remember. And that was however many years. I'm old. That was a long time ago. But there's just certain memories that just stick out and you think, man, that's I don't know why it stuck out, but it did.
No, talent shows in elementary school they're just weird. I don't know. A lot of the performances in elementary schools are weird. Where it's like we did readers theater. I didn't do it, but you have readers theaters, you had the plays, you had the talent shows. It's a weird concept to me now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a lot of time too. Shout out to all those teachers that do that because that stuff's not the easiest stuff to put on. And you also have to think you're not dealing with the most cooperative crew, right? Or not crew, you're not dealing with the most cooperative cast. You're dealing with a bunch of kids and trying to get them. I don't even know how they did it sometimes. I don't know how they put that stuff on. Shout out to them because that seems awful.
Because I don't remember it going like without. I think it went pretty smoothly too. It wasn't like there were a ton of hiccups or miscues. I feel like it was a pretty tight production, but not that any of us had real talent. But I mean, looking back, it just does seem like a waste of time. I would love a teacher to come back and tell me what standards this fulfills. Me being, a farmer and Jack and the Beanstalk. Which that might be racist now that I think about it, is that I was cast as the farmer, the only Asian kid. It's like, oh, that dude knows product and crops, so let's put him out there.
It's like Jack and the Beanstalk, but it's like, why is Jordan over there with the rice paddy?
Yeah, yeah. Seriously, why is that his only crop? Doesn't make any sense.
He's playing Chinese guy number one. It's like, well, he's Japanese. now it's even more racist.
He's just called the Oriental Farmer. Like, this is offensive. I'm not gonna put up with this.
It's like, yeah. Are there any fight scenes? Because of course he knows karate, right?
This farmer's fresh off the boat. Like,
Yeah.
okay, that's not part of the book. Like, we can't have this dialogue in here. It's problematic.
It just adds texture to the play. Yeah, no, those plays were silly. I remember one time, I forgot what story it was for, but I was a baboon, and
Wow.
our mom made the costume for me, and at the time, I was embarrassed to wear the costume because, as you know, how we would enter the theater on those things would be from the back of the room, right?
Mhm.
And so some people, like for certain parts of it, you would enter down the middle of the aisleway, and so you had people on both sides. And so she made this costume, and in the moment I was embarrassed because baboons have like the bright red butt, right?
Mhm.
So I knew I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to walk down the aisle, and this costume just has a has a very red butt. And she did it like it's like she went to National Geographic and checked out like, okay, what does a baboon like what do they actually look like? And she made it perfect. Hindsight, looking back, it's a dope costume.
Mhm.
I'd be proud to wear that costume now. But back then it's like, oh, all these like all my classmates are just gonna stare at my red butt and make fun of me. Now it's like that was pretty sweet. Nice touch, mom.
At least it was only like halfway anatomically correct, because we've seen some baboons at the zoo, and I think you would have caught more attention maybe if the other half was anatomically correct.
Yeah, no, we'll say it just so Jordan, or just so everybody knows. Yeah, we went to the zoo one time. This was as we were older, so we understood everything that was going on. And it was the San Francisco Zoo, and at that zoo, they have a baboon, and this baboon has, he's not in a cage. He's just like in this big open area, and he was just sitting there on the island in the middle of this place, and everybody's looking like, what is going on? And he's just sitting there and he's waving his hands. Well, then you kind of come around the circle and you see he's not waving his hands. Well, he is waving his hands, but he's doing so with intention, right? Intentionality,
Mhm.
and just wailing away at himself in front of all these people, like with just this look of pride, like, hey, I'm an animal. I can just jerk it in front of all you people, and no one can stop me. And it was
He was
fascinating.
he was basically the Louis C.K. of the zoo. He was just he didn't care who was watching. He was just gonna do it, and you were gonna have to watch.
Yeah.
So it's very offensive. But all I'm saying is I'm glad, like, obviously that wouldn't fly, but it could be worse. You could be,
Baboon.
yeah, you could be the baboon.
Yeah, that guy was having a great time. Like I said, I'll never forget that baboon's face too. Just like looking over his shoulder, like, "What's up, guys?"
He had that wry smile that,
He did. He's like, "What's going on? Yeah, you guys can't do this in public, but I can."
it's a real showman.
Yeah, all these parents have to explain what's going on.
I feel like I don't know this. I feel like all like the maybe like the English second people. So like, and basically what I'm saying is Asian parents, they would rush them along, and just white parents just didn't care.
Pull
But
the
I
phone
do,
out, like, "Look at this world star."
yeah. Yeah, especially San Francisco. I feel like you have maybe English second learning people or whatever, and like I
Right.
said, they would rush their they were probably bad parents rushing their kids so they didn't have to see the baboon just you know
Right.
uh pleasure yourself.
Yeah. No, well, it'd be concerning if you had a parent using that as like a teaching moment. It's like, so
Mhm.
here, like the family life videos, that could be a whole episode.
I'm still mad at teachers for, and I was like, I'm like a pretty mature person for my age, but I'm still mad at the teachers for shaming kids for laughing. Like, I get why you have to do it, but like objectively, I would still laugh at that stuff today. So like objectively, it's funny to see certain body parts grow for a guy. I'm sorry, like when you see the little graphic, it's like
Yeah.
Sorry, you don't have a sense of humor, but don't shame me for laughing.
Well, and let's be honest too, because I'm with you, and I would still have a tough time not laughing because I'm immature, even at 33. But I still I believe this back then. I believe this to this day. Part of the problem is like you need to pay more for the person who does your video work, because the video work that you're submitting for these things to teach these lessons is not very good. It doesn't help because you have this guy's voice like saying, and then when you're aroused, and then like you can't take that guy seriously. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And then you have the illustration to go with it. Like, yeah, of course, fourth, fifth, sixth graders are gonna laugh. Of course they are. He's
Right.
like,
Hey, do yourself a favor, go call Zach Sladek.
yeah, call Zach. I'm sure Zach's
Zach,
doing like product videos. He doesn't have time to do that.
Zach's thrilled. He's gonna go through a puberty video. That's exactly the type of press he wants.
Hey, I'll tell you what though, Zach stuff's dope. I would check it out. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, how do I get a copy of that video?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but that's that stuff was always was always was always funny, especially when you like when they started. Was it sixth grade? You watch with the girls and the guys together.
No, see that we didn't do it. So we did fourth grade was just boys, which that's the funniest. That's when I laughed. I think fifth grade was the opposite sex. So boys learned about girls, girls learned about boys, and then sixth grade was like sex, just merging the two together. So
Okay.
I remember in fourth grade, it was a big deal because you would separate the boys and the girls.
Sure, I remember that. Yeah,
And I remember there was a lot of exchanging of materials amongst the boys and the girls.
that's funny.
Because you, like I said, you only boys learned about boys, girls learned about girls. So you'd find your best girlfriend and exchange the pamphlets and handouts, and you kind of learn a preview of what was to come in fifth grade.
Yeah, I feel like they should have seen that coming. Nope, nobody.
Yeah, there's like, okay, don't share this with the opposite sex, and immediately you go and just share it with the opposite sex. So
Yeah,
but no, we didn't watch. That would make things very uncomfortable. But you did look at the other sex like with a side eye after you got out of that period. They kind of did it like on a Friday afternoon. So like
they
walking to the cars, you're just kind of like, oh, that's what's going on.
You have that, huh? That's what's going on behind the behind the scenes. Yeah, no. So maybe I'm wrong. You're probably right. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Like the way they did it was the way they did it for us too. Yeah, it was always interesting. But like it's just funny like you said the interactions that people have or don't have after that. Because like you said, some like there's kind of a side eye, and then some people it's like just look straight ahead. Like you can't look at the other side, the other gender, because just too much. You just learn too much. I remember a couple kids specifically. It was like it's overwhelming. It's like information overload. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. For some kids, it was like that toad gif, hype overload.
Yeah.
It depends. Some of those dudes like this is beginner stuff. Tell me the real stuff. Like, geez, man. I had a couple of guys like that. Like they could have taught the class. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
they were probably a little bit more advanced than their classmates for sure. Definitely more advanced than I was. So,
right.
Anyway, sorry, that went on a very dark turn. Not dark turn. That went a very it's a hard right.
Yeah. Well,
that's what happens. Connectable podcast.
What
we do.
I had another name for this section of the podcast, but you kind of gave thumbs down to that one.
Okay. Thumbs down. All right. Do you have one more, or is that it?
Yeah, I have one more. I'll make it quick. It's just the package deal, people. It's like the people when you're picking teams at the beginning of recess, there's like, oh no, I'm with my best friend, and it just happens to be kind of the best two players. So I remember, I think I've told the story on the other podcast that you do. You usually shot to choose captain. So, and like I said, I wasn't a good player in basketball. So I shot a three, I made it. So I got to choose first, which rarely happened. And I happened to choose someone, and they were just like, okay, yeah, I'll be on your team. But you could tell they weren't pumped to be on my team. Again, my teams usually lost because I just wasn't very good. And the other teams kind of got drafted. We got drafted and we started playing, and all of a sudden my top pick just leaves. So it's like, okay, that sucks. We're down a player, and my best player left. Then all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, they come, but they also brought their best friend, and then they switched teams on me. So now it's like 7-on-3. I lost my best player to the other team, And it's a trash move. Like, it's very strategic. I get it. It's savvy. It's strategic. But can you imagine if like last year Trevor Lawrence was like, oh yeah, no, like you draft me, but like I also get Jamar Chase. So he comes along. Like we can't do this in like the free world. What are we doing here? This isn't how society works. You can't just get a package deal. And
you need to sign. That's where those Kochas could have come in. You could have had like a Kocha deal, sign a contract, say, hey, if you play for my team, you stick out the entire recess with me, I'll give you 5 Kochas, and then that's the end of your contract. But you know, they weren't in breach of a contract because that was just a bad character move, I guess.
Yeah, very bad character. But I do like that. I feel like we can present that idea to local elementary schools, and I do think we can. It's like an NIL thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
you know, and if you break your contract, then you get the Kocha being a douche, like you said earlier.
Yeah, no, I'm bad cop. I hand those out, and you know what? I'm very liberal with those. I'll just throw those all over the place.
Yeah.
I feel like that should be on social media. Caught you being a douchebag, and I can just be the czar of that.
That seems like that should be a Reddit subreddit.
Yeah,
you may have to get on that. I could turn into a whole segment. I like that.
I'm gonna trademark that soon.
Yeah, do it before this airs, because otherwise,
someone's gonna steal it. Yeah,
this idea is in the world. This idea is in the world. Yes, that's it. I will say one thing I did want to mention. I'm sure every school has their version of this, but our school, long outdoor hallway that opened up to the playground. If you got in trouble, I don't know if they still do this, but if you got in trouble during class, one of the punishments could be, hey, you have to be on the wall, as it was called. And so basically during your recess, you just had to sit on the wall. You'd eat lunch, go straight to the wall, which those kids definitely tried to run out the clock, right? It's like they're gonna squeeze every moment of lunch they can, because they know as soon as they step out of the doors of the cafeteria, they have to head straight to the wall. But yeah, the wall kid, it seemed like some kids were on the wall all the time. It's like, when's the last time you played at recess, dog? Like, you've just been on the wall your entire second grade career. Like, why are you always here? And then every once in a while, it did become a situation. It was like a search party. It was like, hey, Johnny's supposed to be on the wall. Where's Johnny? And then there's always like scouring the playground to find Johnny. And you realize Johnny's hiding under the playground and just bouncing back and forth like he's I don't know, like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, just sneaking around and, you know, trying to stay low. But yeah, the wall situation was always funny. And go ahead.
Because you really did have kids like serving 50 to life.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's like next step was legit like the electric chair, and they were just gonna die.
Yeah, yeah, and they basically had their spot too. It's like, okay, we know Steve. He always stands to the left of the water fountain. Joey stands to the right of the water fountain, and then anybody else, like a newcomer, is like, hey, what are you in for? What'd you do? You know, they share war stories.
Again, I don't know. I apologize for getting too sexual on this podcast, but you're right. It like the prime position was right by the waterfall, and that was like the conjugal visit. Is you'd have someone come by, you could just talk to them, and then they would kind of leave. So sure. Like you're on the wall, you're doing your time, and going to the waterfall or the water fountain was like basically, like I said, a conjugal visit.
Yeah,
it was just like a quick session where you can talk to someone, but. And it's kind of allowed because you can't stop a kid from getting water, but it's also like, you know, not smiled upon. It's more frowned upon you talking to them.
Yeah, I feel like we probably could have just gone. It could have been like a jail visit rather than a conjugal visit. I just want to make it very clear: no sex was happening at the water fountain.
No. But it, you know, yeah.
You had to go.
I'm just trying to win this guest of the year, man. Sex sells. So if I can relate anything to a conjugal visit, if that gets me to beat Paul Piercy next year, I'm gonna do it.
I'm gonna cut that one part. It's like I'm trying not to be too sexual on this podcast.
I was, when you told me, you texted me today, I was like, okay, don't get too sexual. Don't do the same Chappelle, the 4 thumbs down joke, and don't make a reference to The Wire. I failed at 2 of those today, so I don't even know. You
failed at 2, and then you mentioned the other one, just didn't say it. So
right,
it's all right. That's all right though. People enjoy me on the podcast, so I have no doubt they'll enjoy this.
I will say, just to add on to the wall, like I don't know if you had this. There's a time where I don't know what stupid teacher book these teachers were reading, but there was a time where like they tried to do the group peer pressure thing, where if one person was in trouble, everyone got in trouble.
Yeah.
So those wall, like it was like, you want to talk about impacted prisons, like that's the wall. It was like we were literally on top of each other, filling up the wall because one kid, was, stuck something up his butt. And it's just like, why am I getting in trouble for this?
Yeah, I didn't stick it up there.
And it's like, where are we on, like at the Eastern Bloc? Why are we doing these? This is so stupid. Like, this isn't fair.
Well, here's the thing too. A lot of times with that kid, I can't think of a situation where that kid's been like, hey, I don't want the class to suffer. I did it. That kid is willing to take everybody down with the ship. No problem. Not even a problem. Like, not even a problem. You know what I mean? There's like, yep, let's go. I love the wall. I got my spot. I got my conversations at the water fountain. It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Sorry. One more, and then we'll get out of here. But one that, again, Rachel mentioned, and it is funny because it depends on the situation. But there was a lot of times there was a kid that would hang around with the yard duty and kind of just almost like become their shadow. And who knows why they were doing that? It could have been because they weren't, close with anybody. So we don't want to make fun of that. But I do know a couple of people that they took like the snitching to another level, because they would hang out.
Randall from Recess.
That's exactly what I told Rachel. It's Randall from Recess. It's like, look over there. They're playing tackle football. I mean, it's like a second set of eyes, And like I said, some of them, I can't imagine that the yard duties were always super thrilled about that. It's like, oh man, this kid's driving me nuts. It's kind of like Andy in The Office when he's trying to just, suck up to Michael the whole time. And finally he's like, enough.
Like, sorry for bothering you with my friendship.
Yeah.
No, because they weren't, the kids that weren't maybe well liked by their peers maybe weren't well liked by adults in at least certain situations in my classes. Like, again, the kids that maybe I wasn't a fan of, like on field trips, my parents would be like, hey, that kid, kind of a problem. I don't like being around them. Like, okay, yeah, I don't either. We're not going to invite him to my birthday party.
We're all on the same page. This kid needs to tighten some things up. Yeah. So anyways, that's our top five playground people. Anything you want to share? Anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
No, I think I kind of just did my damage. So
just get out, drop the grenade and leave. Where can they follow you on social media, all that stuff?
At Jordan Takimoto. So
Twitter. Go follow, if you have Twitter, go follow him on Twitter. A lot of fun stuff on Twitter.
Yeah.
If you enjoy this podcast, you'll enjoy his Twitter for sure. And then Instagram too. Has some awesome GoPro pictures. Check it out. And you guys can follow us at Connectable Podcast on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. It's at Connectable Pod on Twitter, which really makes me upset sometimes. I'm like, if they would have just allowed a couple more letters, we could have had at Connectable Podcast on everything, but they didn't want to play ball. So make sure you guys follow us on all those places. Please head over to Apple Podcasts to give us a 5-star rating and review. Also, something new that just happened over the last couple weeks, Spotify now gives you the ability to give a review, a star review. So if you would be so kind, if you have Spotify, if you listen to this podcast on Spotify, head over to our Connectable page and give us a 5-star review. We would definitely appreciate that. Anything helps. And and hey, when you listen, after you listen to this episode, check out our Instagram and let us know if you can relate to any of these people, if there's any personalities that we missed in this episode. We would love to hear it, because I always love hearing everybody's perspective on this stuff. So let us know. So that being said, Jordan, thank you so much for hanging out, talking, and we will talk to you guys later. See you. Oh, he beat me to it. How dare you? That's my sign off. And the guns. Get out, man. Get out of here.
And the guns.
Thanks for watching the show. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button to get a new episode every week. We'll see you next time on the Connectable Podcast.